Okay? Bose-Einstein condensates. Now, very strange things happen with Bose-Einstein condensates. When you take matter and you put it into a Bose-Einstein condensate, which usually is done by getting close to absolute zero, then not only do the molecules lose their molecular appearance, but the atoms of the molecules start to lose their atomic appearance. Everything starts to look and behave as one. Not unlike what you just saw with your consciousness and the glass. Okay? We are beings of oneness inherently. And this is why. Okay? Now, I'm going to quickly jump through this. What they also discovered is that consciousness depends on anharmonic vibrations of microtubules inside the neurons. Okay? Anharmonic means it's not harmonious, basically. I can give you a technical definition, but I need to move fast. So what I'm basically going to tell you is these microtubules have geometry. And this geometry is very important because it's harmonious. It's a harmonic geometry. Every microtubule has this. Our DNA has it. Everything about us is harmonious. So what are anharmonic vibrations doing running these microtubules? All right, I'm going to take a side trip with you for now. I'm just going to take a very strange and fantastic example to show you what we have the potential of and what we're not doing, okay? So I'm going to look at human oneness versus what's called technological singularity. Do you remember that term? It was on the first slide. Singularity University. This is what NSA secretly is very invested in. Technological singularity. I'm just going to use levitation as a ridiculous example here, okay? So on the left you see a painting of St. Joseph of Cupertino called the Flying Saint, all right? There's a lot written about him. A lot of research was done on the Vatican about him. Not only would he float, but sometimes him, and in other cases, other flying saints, literally would have 2 and 3 altar boys hanging on them as they would levitate. All right? Now, in January of 1875, Sir William Crookes compiled and published a list of 40 cases of levitation in the Quarterly Journal of Science. It is estimated that there have been over 90,000 cases of human levitation throughout recorded history. Yet, what are we doing about this? Is this just a fantastic notion we should be ignoring? I submit to you, we should not. There is something earth-changing when we invest in our human magnificence. On the right, you see a secret program that probably none of you know about called the TR-3B. I would call it a UFO, except it's not unidentified. It's known by those in the know. Even Jane's Book of Aircraft has references to the TR-3B. And here's a quote from that. The Tactical Reconnaissance TR-3B's codename Astra first operational flight was in the early 90s. The triangular-shaped nuclear-powered aerospace platform was developed under the top-secret Aurora program with SDI and black-budget monies. At least 3 of the billion-dollar-plus TR-3Bs were flying by 1994. Whistleblowers have revealed we presently have an entire fleet of them. Billions of dollars. Okay? I'm sure this is a wonderful war toy, but ought we not to be spending that money in a better place? For example, One of the things that occurs with levitation situations is there's normally like a halo that's seen around the person. Okay? Now we've come to think that halos mean the person's holy. Well, not necessarily so. All right? So I'm just going to, because I'm a mathematician, I'm going to quickly take you through something that I am just baffled that scientists are completely ignoring. So on the upper left corner there, you see the formula for gravity. So the force of gravity is equal to the gravitational constant times two masses divided by the distance between the masses squared. Okay, this is a Newtonian formula that has been used for centuries. All right. Now, we also have the theory of relativity, and the equation for that is E equals mc squared, which most of you have heard of. Whether you understand it or not doesn't matter. We know it works. Well, if you just use high school algebra and flip things around, m equals energy over the speed of light squared. And if you take that a step further and substitute that back into the gravitational equation, then the gravitational force is equal to the gravitational constant of energy squared over the speed of light quadrupled times the distance quadrupled. Now, what you don't know is a recent discovery that came out of Cornell University. So scientists have recently theorized the universe is made up of a singularity, there's that word again, or single geometry. Remember singularitarians and their technological singularity. This is a whole different kind of singularity. The amplituhedron, which is that pretty little thing right here, that's all it is. That's it. Which shows that space is an artifact and time is an artifact, subject to consciousness. There that word shows up again. Thus giving us mathematical indication of the role of light with gravity. What it means is that other formula above it causes r to the fourth, which is the distance, to drop out. Because the amplituhedron has shown that time and space do not exist as we know it. Time and space do not exist as we know it. Which leaves only one conclusion. That time and space exist because we choose that it exists. That time and space itself is subject to human consciousness. And if you go along with the discovery of the amplituhedron, then the force of gravity is equal to a constant times energy divided by the speed of light quadrupled. Okay? It basically says that light and light alone has a fantastic implication with gravity. What scientists have discovered is another phenomenon called biophotons, okay? Well, before I get into that, the implication is that gravity does not exist in the third dimension, and that's the reason why gravitons have not been discovered. We're looking in the wrong place. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? So, what this amplituhedron does is this is used now in figuring out what happens when atomic particles collide and create subatomic particles, like in the Hadron Collider. Now, up until the discovery of the amplituhedron, it took months, sometimes years, to get through all the data to figure out what a new subatomic particle was. Okay? They can now do it in days with the amplituhedron, this mathematical device, which I submit to you goes into also a higher dimension to get this answer to drop out. That is not as wild as it may sound. For instance, any of you who have looked at the computer graphics on your computer with games that are on the computer, you will see that these images on the computer move rather quickly. Well, there are tremendously large equations that are involved in moving those computer graphics on the computer. What they do is they now use a mathematical component called quaternions, which greatly simplify the calculations and being able to figure out those computer graphics. This works in the very same way with subatomic particles. So, I mean, this is in our ordinary reality. We're just not aware of it. Okay? So.
At Harvard, a Danish scientist, Lena Howe, had the idea of using a condensate to slow down light.
We all have this sense, you know, light is something that nothing goes faster than light in vacuum. And if somehow we could use this system to get light down to, you know, to a human level, I thought that was just absolutely fascinating.
Lena Howe created a cigar-shaped Bose-Einstein condensate to carry out her experiment. She fired a light pulse into the cloud. The speed of light is around 186,000 miles per second, but when the pulse hits the condensate, it slows down to the speed of a bicycle.
So light pulse might start out being 1 to 2 miles long in free space. It goes into our medium, and since the front edge enters first, that will slow down. The back edge is still in free space. That'll catch up, and that'll create that compression, and it'll end up being compressed from 1 to 2 miles down to 0.001 micron, or even smaller than that. You could say, well, gee, it's easy to stop light because I could just set a laser beam into a wall and I would stop it. Well, the problem is you lose the information because it turns into heat. You can never get that information back. In our case, when we stop it, the information is not lost because that's stored in the medium. And then when we have time to revive it, the system has all the information to revive the light pulse and it can move on.
One day, ultra-cold atoms will probably be used to store and even process information. Even now, cold atoms are being turned into prototype quantum computers.
As a quantum mechanic,
Okay.
I want to hear more.
It's on YouTube. Okay. So just look up Harvard Howe Lab and you can see the full video. All right, so here we are again with BECs showing up, Bose-Einstein condensates. Now in the Howe lab, they create these again by going down to close absolute zero. However, I submit to you that Penrose has shown that the human body contains Bose-Einstein condensates at normal body temperatures. Okay? The mere fact that the Howe lab has shown that the speed of light is not a constant should be headlines in newspapers and in academia. Yet hardly anyone is aware of this. Why? Especially with what Penrose and Hameroff are coming up with. The implications that our bodies have Bose-Einstein condensates and can then possibly manipulate light would have profound implications once again about reality. Okay? One of the factors that is showing up is that the body itself can create light. And they're called biophotons. Now, what a lot of people don't know is they've done research with these biophotons. And they can take a room like this, and if it's empty, there would be no biophotons in it. None. You put one human being sitting in a chair in this room, and all of a sudden the room is filled with biophotons.